So, when it comes to the 2016 election, for all intents and purposes, it is officially in the books. And some of you are happy with the results, some of you are upset by the results, some of you are indifferent to the results, some of you are so fed up you're just glad it's over. So, of course, I had to be that Tom, Dick, and Yahoo that had to sit there when we're just coming off of the 2016 election to sit there and do a video about the 2020 election. But it's a topic of conversation, so I figured why not throw my hat into the ring. You know, it's interesting right now when you look at it from a standpoint of what Democrats might be thinking right now. And it seems like a lot of the blame goes on James Comey, the FBI director. It goes on the messaging of the Clinton campaign. It goes on certain things about Trump voters and who they are and what they might represent, what they might believe. And it blames so many things other than what the real culprits were, which are the electoral college system that we have, and the fact that Hillary Clinton was pretty much a historically bad and flawed Democratic candidate for president. That's why Donald Trump is the president. There's so many people do not like Donald Trump. And even some that voted for him try to convince themselves that they like him and they know they can't stand him. And they wish they had a real viable option, Republican, Democrat, or Independent, that they could have voted for. And even people I talked to that were like me, two-time Obama voters. There was no way in the world they could ever reconcile voting for Hillary Clinton. That was the problem. Is as bad as Donald Trump was, and as historically unlikable as he was, in many ways, Hillary Clinton was every bit as unlikable, if not more so. So now you have the Democrats talking about, they lost the working class white voter forever, and or do we need to do an autopsy report on them? And it's like, run a better candidate. You probably don't run into this issue. You can talk about so many different things, but now the Democrats will sit there and they basically have 4 years to get their shit together, and they got 4 years to figure it out, and they got 4 years to figure out how they're going to overcome Team Trump, if Trump even runs for a second term. If he does, or if he doesn't, they're still going to be running ultimately against Donald Trump. So let's take a look at who I think are the top 10 Democratic candidates for 2020, based off a variety of factors. Now, starting off first with some of the names that might get thrown out there or will be thought of, but ultimately I don't expect to run. Bernie Sanders is going to be pushing 80 at that time. I know there's a part of him that probably believes that he could still make a run of it, and maybe the Democrats learned their lesson in 2016, and therefore they will gravitate to me in 2020. He was already angry grandpa. Now you're pushing 80. I'm sorry. I'm not supporting anybody for president that's pushing 80. And I think a lot of people, even some Bernie supporters, will sit there and say, I don't know about all that. But at the end of the day, I think his biggest strength in popularity is going to come from being an advocate on the campaign trail than actually being a candidate on the campaign trail. I just don't see him running in 2020. Could be wrong, but I just don't see it. And even if he did, I don't see it being as successful as it was for him in 2016. Joe Biden, same thing. He's going to be like, I think, 77, 78. When you talk about a guy that could appeal somewhat to working class voters, Biden's that type of guy. But again, if he didn't run in 2016, why would he run in 2020? So I think he's a no. There's kind of a cynical part of me that really believes that the Democrats for 4 years could get to a point where they maybe don't like any of the other viable options, and they try to repackage Hillary Clinton, and they try to remake Hillary Clinton, and they try to rebuild Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton tries to rebuild and remake and reimage and reshape Hillary Clinton. And she tries to think about running again in 2020. But I just don't see that shit happening either. I don't. There'd probably be some talk about it. But, now that Trump's in the White House and some of the people he's appointing in certain places, God knows what her foundation is going to be investigated for, what she's going to be investigated for. It ain't happening. Even though there's probably a strong undercurrent right now boiling in the Clinton machine that wants to give it another go in 4 years. And then the last big name that you're going to hear a lot about, very popular Democrat right now, is Michelle Obama. And really, honestly, most first ladies tend to be pretty popular figures. And in large part, that's because they can deal with safe issues. They can talk about things that most people can agree with. such as health initiatives and, uh, you know, what else could you sit there and say? Helping the homeless, reading programs, things like that. So it's really hard to hate on those things. So I know a lot of liberals, progressives, Democrats view Michelle Obama as a star within the Democratic Party. In a lot of ways, she is. And if her and Barack ever break up, hey, baby, I'm right here. With that said, though, part of the reason she is such a star is because she can talk about a lot of safe issues. If she actually started to go on the campaign trail, there would be a lot of comparisons. This is Hillary Bill all over again. And there'd be somewhat valid comparisons, criticisms, critiques. And she just doesn't have the political chops, I don't think, to be able to do it, nor do I think she has the desire to do it. I think, again, similar to Bernie Sanders, the best way to keep her star power and her positive image and approvals is by not having her run for office, by having her as an advocate and a warrior on the campaign trail. So some of those names that you might hear about or bandied about, I just don't see any of them running. Let's get to the list of the 10, though. Number 10, Andrew Cuomo. I even feel kind of dirty seeing it, but you're talking about a former, New York governor. I don't even care. Some of the establishment might like him. He's somebody that dates back to the Clinton regime of the 90s, working under the Bill Clinton administration. But again, the Clinton machine and everything Clinton just basically got killed in the 2016 election. Why the fuck would you want anybody associated with that? Those days gone by in 2020. Just no. But I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to make a run at it. Number 9, Kirsten Gillibrand, the junior senator from New York. This is the person that ultimately took over Hillary Clinton's Senate seat when she vacated it to become Barack Obama's Secretary of State. There's going to be that undercurrent from Democrats to sit there and try a woman again, but there are much better women to try in this party, and she's one of those blue dog Democrats. I just don't see her doing very well in the primary process. I just don't see it. But again, a name of somebody who could run. Number 8, a guy that kind of fills the Dennis Kucinich role, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but he's not really going to get much traction as a candidate, I don't imagine. But he'll be a guy that certain people really, really like, and he'll talk about some important things, and that's Sherrod Brown, or Sherrod Brown, however you want to say. I can't remember how it's said. I don't fucking care. The Democratic senator from Ohio. That's a state when you're talking about trying to flip the election to the Democrats in 2020. Brown being from Ohio could be important. He's not an unpopular guy there by any stretch of the imagination. He's got some working class credentials. He's got a lot of fans in the progressive liberal side. So he might be a guy that could have a little bit of a voice on the campaign trail. I just don't see him being able to mount much of a challenge. On number 7, Tim Kaine. It's kind of like the old philosophy of next in line. And you see this a lot with guys that served as vice president, sometimes run for president. People that were part of previous campaigns where they were the vice president before, or vice presidential nominee one time, the next time try to go for the big show. So it makes sense that Tim Kaine would run. I would be surprised if he didn't run. He carries some value on the ticket in terms of he might give you the ability to help hold Virginia. Does it translate much past that? I don't know. On top of that, he was part of the Hillary failure of 2016. If you're Democratic Party trying to lick your wounds and figure out how you're going to go forward in the next 4 years to get to that moment in 2020, do you really want to be associated with anything from the Hillary Clinton campaign failure of 2016? I don't think so, especially when you look at his poor debate performance against Mike Pence. Yeah, so Kaine will, I'm pretty sure will run and give it a shot, but you can see I don't feel very much about his chances at number 7. Number 6, Kamala Harris, the former Attorney General from California, now is going to be a U.S. Senator as she won, was it Boxer's old seat? I think it was. I don't really care. But here's a multi-ethnic woman. I believe she has heritage that's black, that's Indian, that's many different things. So if you're thinking about if Donald Trump runs in 4 years and you want to play the woman card, but you want to play the woman card more effectively with a woman that maybe more women can actually get behind, Kamala Harris may be an option. Now, I think there could be a lot of potential baggage there in terms of her time as an attorney general and some of the things that she did in the state of California. But with that said, there could be elements of the party that view her as a rising star. And you'll hear her name talked about from time to time. So I wouldn't be surprised if she gave it a shot in 2020 and got a little bit of traction. But I don't know if she would have staying power. The top 5 on my list, I think, could potentially have at least a little bit of staying power as candidates, even though I take them seriously at different levels. Number 5, Al Franken. If Donald Trump could do it, why the hell can't Al? This is a progressive with some name recognition, some type of star power from the state of Minnesota. So if you're a Democratic Party and you're trying to win back states in the Rust Belt and the Midwest, you might think Al Franken might be a good way to go. I think, in fact, somebody was already trying to create a super PAC for Al Franken in 2020. I don't know if he'll run, but I would be surprised if he didn't run. And I would be surprised if there weren't some elements of the party that kind of gravitated towards him a little bit. Now, I don't think he would ultimately get the nomination, but I think he could be at least a little bit of a player early on in the process in places like Iowa and New Hampshire in the early primaries and caucuses, potentially. Excuse me. But there's a chance, because like I said, anything can happen. Donald Trump just got elected as the 40th president of the United States, so I don't dismiss Al Franken easily or lightly. But at the end of the day, I just don't see it. In terms of the 4 names that I think are most likely to be the nominee in 2020 at this moment in time, I could pick any of the 4 on the list and give real tangible reasons as to why they could be it. Number 4, Amy Klobuchar. This is somebody you talk about very popular from the state of Minnesota, a state that Hillary Clinton barely held on to in 2016. When you're talking about if she's popular in Minnesota, chances are it will work that same message from her in Wisconsin and Michigan, potentially Ohio. And you look at the margin that Hillary won Minnesota by, and it's a direct reflection to the struggles and performance in states that she ultimately lost, particularly Wisconsin and Michigan. So Klobuchar being incredibly popular in the state of Minnesota would, make that a safer Democratic state for 2020, and that potentially could carry over to places like Wisconsin and Michigan, maybe in Ohio, maybe somewhere like a Florida, but she's somebody that I think is like, you look at her and you say, that's who you would want Hillary Clinton to be a little bit more like. Klobuchar doesn't have all the scandal and all the years of baggage and all that other crap going along with her. So there's a definite part of me that could see somebody like Amy Klobuchar, if they ran, gaining a lot of traction, potentially. Number 3, Julian Castro. You look at him, he served under the Obama administration in the cabinet. His twin brother is still a representative from Texas in Congress, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, former mayor of San Antonio, Texas. So you're talking about potentially here a Hispanic candidate on the Democrats' ticket going up against Donald Trump. This is a guy that could maybe rally together the Obama coalition. This is a guy that could maybe get a slight uptick in support from the Hispanic and Latino communities and also get a little bit more support amongst the black community or black voters than Hillary Clinton did. And then potentially with a guy like Castro on the ticket, in spite of the fact that his last name is Castro, and God only knows what some super PACs would sit there and suggest with that shit. God only knows. Ask Ted Cruz what Donald Trump said about his pappy, for Christ's sake. But if you're trying to make Arizona flip blue and you want to make Texas purple, Castro might be the guy to go with. And he's young, fresh face, not somebody that's been in Washington for 30 years. So you want to talk about change, he would be a change type of candidate. Number 2, Cory Booker. He's going to be the rock star, so to speak. He's going to be the guy you're going to hear all types of comparisons to him and Obama over the next 4 years. There's going to be a lot of thought that he could rally together the Obama coalition. There's a lot of thought that he could be that type of overpowering personality that could draw in enough working class voters. He would get Obama levels of support potentially amongst black and Hispanic voters. There's a lot of things pointing in Cory Booker's favor. He was a keynote speaker at the 2016 convention. Some problems include the fact that he was very pro-Hillary very early on. This is a guy that's also very pro-banks and big business, which might not play well with certain aspects and departments within the liberal and progressive side of the Democratic Party. So he could have some challenges and issues that he could potentially face there. Some of the critiques by liberals and progressives of Cory Booker may be valid. A lot of it is not, but it is what it is. You're going to hear this name a lot over the next 4 years. I'd be surprised if he ultimately didn't throw his hat into the ring. One other major issue he could run into, though, is that he's not married. And that's going to lead to talk about him being gay and all this other stuff. And, it's kind of like, on the one hand, it's like, does it really matter? Does it really impact his job, his ability to do the job, what have you? But then on the other hand, you talk about, if you are, then especially for somebody in the public like that, why are you hiding it? Why are you denying it? If you can't be honest about who you are and what you are, then why would we think that you would be honest with us running the country? And that's the thing. It was actually to a point where I recently, I think I opined that he was openly out. Well, apparently he's not, and that was my mistake, and I apologize for that. That was more of a perception of mine and what other people had said. So that's my bad. But I do think there could be a real rock star type of appeal with a Cory Booker, where after 4 years, people are saying with Donald Trump, well, if Barack would have been able to run for a third term against Trump, he probably would have won. Maybe, maybe not. But this would be their chance to kind of get back at it. Well, Cory Booker is going to be a name, just like I think Castro will definitely be a name. But number one on the list right now is Elizabeth Warren. In 2020, she's going to be, I think, about 71 years old. So she's older, but she's not any older than Hillary or Trump were this go round. She's going to be somebody that naturally slots in to the Bernie Sanders elements within the Democratic Party. A lot of those Bernie supporters are definitely, obviously, going to feel the burn with Elizabeth Warren, especially with the way that she takes on big banks and the financial industry. That really is red meat for a lot of liberals and progressives, and honestly could be the type of message that can potentially carry over to working class voters, minorities, and the working class whites as well. And you look at it, it's one of those things where maybe her age would be a little bit of an impact, maybe her gender, because there are men, and people don't always want to talk about this, but it is a fact because it is out there. There are elements within the male population that would never vote for a woman president because of the nagging wife syndrome. They don't like their wives very much. They get tired of their wives bitching at them all the time. Why do they want to turn on the TV and see their president do that for the next 4 years? Fair or not, that's a perception. Elizabeth Warren is not exactly, incredibly easy on the eyes. Same thing with Hillary Clinton. And for some guys, that's going to matter too. Some women won't vote for a woman president because they don't feel like a woman is equipped for the job. Again, fair or not, that's going to be small segments, but it could be enough of a segment of the female voting base to turn the election. So she's going to have some challenges, and it's the ultimate identity crisis for the Democratic Party over the next 4 years. Do they need to go farther left, or do they need to run more to the middle, especially on economic issues? What's crazy is, in a lot of ways, some of the things that they represent on the left are something that aren't really left ideas. They are kind of more central. And again, this is all about media bullshit, and this is about propaganda. It's about driving agendas and perceptions being created and all of that. Right now I look at it, Elizabeth Warren would have to be the betting favorite to be the candidate in 2020, especially if Donald Trump does run again, because her and Trump have had a lot of history, so she has no problem going after him and going after him hard, but not always just on the BS, but talking about the actual issues in a much more eloquent and effective way than Hillary could ever imagine. But I really would not be surprised if she maybe decided that she didn't want to, that she enjoys being a senator, and that she feels there's more power for her in having popularity as a senator, as a voice for liberal and progressive issues, as somebody who could go out on the campaign trail and stump for somebody. Maybe she sees Hillary's failure as an opportunity for her. Maybe she sees Hillary's failure as a reason to stay on the sideline. Right now, she's the betting favorite. But I would be surprised over the next 4 years if some of the momentum didn't start going towards Cory Booker or Julian Castro or even Amy Klobuchar, who I think, especially if Elizabeth Warren didn't run, it would really benefit her because now she would be the standout female on the ticket for the Democrats. I look at these candidates and I will say this: at least there's more options. There would be more choices, and it would be a better pool of talent, most certainly, than we got in 2016 with other guys like Martin O'Malley and Jib Webb and the Kermit the Frog ripoff Lincoln Chafee. I mean, along with Bernie and Hillary, if it was all white, it was all right for the Democrats in 2016, which is the ironic thing. They only ran white candidates in their primary, yet they struggled with a lot of working class white voters and black voters and Hispanic voters. They just struggled across the fucking board because Hillary sucked that bad. You know you're in a bad place when, when the second most popular candidate in the primary season is an independent who just decided to run as a Democrat who identifies as a socialist. Just think about that for a second. Just think about that for a second. But again, in 2020, the prospects look a little better because at that point in time, they could actually run against Trump, or if he decides not to run again, or he's not in office by that time, if they're running against a Pence or a Cruz or somebody else, they're running against the Trump administration. They're running up against the Trump legacy. And that's a more powerful position for the Democrats in 2020 than the position they put themselves in 2016. 4 years from now, I'll probably look back at this video and laugh. I'll be like, well, I didn't see this coming. I didn't see that coming. But here's how it stands for now. You don't really care. You don't really care. I can't blame you. But I decided to do this video, and now I'm done.